earlier this week at a prayer breakfast, an elected official said these words, "I can't separate my belief because I'm an elected official." He also went on to say this.
We are bringing our best fight in the ring. We would not have homeless in this city. We would not have a crisis of domestic violence. We would not have children, because when we took prayers out of schools, guns came into schools.
Now, if that were coming from a mayor of a ruby red city or coming from, a governor of a red state, yeah, okay. But no, that's not who that was. That was the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, a Democratic mayor. I mean, is that surprising? Well, many were. And there were many on the left that were upset that he connected kicking God and prayer out of schools to the guns and violence that came in. Why is that? Well, joining me now to talk about this, Arielle Del Turco, Assistant Director for the Center for Religious Liberty here at the Family Research Council and co-author of Heroic Faith, Hope Amid Global Persecution. Arielle, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Good to be with you, Tony.
All right, so first, give our viewers and listeners the context of these remarks made by Mayor Adams.
Yeah, so his remarks were given at an interfaith prayer breakfast with religious leaders from different religions, as well as local politicians from New York. And I think the frankness with which he spoke about the impact of faith on his life and in just how he lives and how he makes decisions, even in public office, really has rattled some leftist activists who are really coming out strongly against him.
What I find interesting about this, Arielle, is that his policies are certainly right out of the left's playbook, and he hasn't deviated from the Democratic orthodoxy when it comes to his liberal policies. But just the fact that at a prayer breakfast, he connects the problems that we're having in society, the lack of the moral foundation, with kicking God and prayer out of our schools, that has the left all up in arms.
Yeah, and I think some of the remarks he made at the prayer breakfast, even if, as you suggested, his faith isn't reflected in all of his policies in the way that we would think is appropriate, these remarks, they're meaningful because it's a real policy that he would like to see. He thinks prayers belong in schools. And to the left, that's radical. They want to see faith erased from all of public life and pushed out of the public sphere entirely. I think that's why we see President Biden say that he is a faithful Christian, although we would doubt that, and the left doesn't bat an eye. But because he's hinting at a policy that he would like to see changed, the left is mad.
And I guess we should underscore the fact that the city of New York, the schools are a little bit different, so that the city council and the mayor actually do have a lot of input into the schools in New York. So if the mayor there is saying he wants to bring prayer back into the schools, given the desperate situation they are faced with, that's a policy he can actually pursue.
Yeah, and I think the mayor is seeing what a lot of American Christians see, that our youth are really hurting, and that taking prayer out of schools has not helped our society, hasn't helped our youth. We're looking at a situation where the CDC reported just a few days ago skyrocketing rates of depression and suicidal ideation among teens. And religion and faith in God, it offers meaning, something bigger than themselves for kids to live for, to behave better for. I think even a secular city like New York, even a Democratic mayor sees the positive that can come out of encouraging religion among the youth.
Yeah, I think the evidence is overwhelming. We see that, and certainly we see it, and I know you work with us at FRC on the international religious front, and we see this in societies and countries that embrace religious freedom. They're more stable, they have stronger economies, so faith is really central to so much in terms of the prosperity of a nation. One final question for you, Arielle. You know, those activists on the leftists constantly misuse the phrase separation of church and state. And I think that's a part of what we're hearing, even with the mayor there bringing up prayer at a prayer breakfast, that somehow he's violating the separation of church and state. Can you set the record straight on that?
Yeah, well, the First Amendment, obviously, it prevents the establishment of an official religion. But the way that the left likes to read this is that it prevents any display of religion or religiosity or prayer or belief in God at all from the public square, which simply is not true. So it's a really inappropriate framing, both of separation of church and state and what the Constitution says, but also of his comments, of the mayor's comments, which were simply reflecting what a lot of us know to be true.
This will be the final question, but what did he say that stuck out most to you?
Well, the mayor also mentioned how he credited God with putting him in his current role as mayor of New York City. I thought that was a rather radical admission today, too, in such a secular society, that he would credit God for that. However, it's not unusual for Christians. I think you and I would say the same thing about our roles. But also, it made me think of the American founders and how they often mentioned divine providence. And even in the Declaration of Independence, we have this beautiful phrase where when our founders were starting the new nation, they did so with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence.
Arielle, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.